in the Mahayana Buddhism, generally in Buddhism, and especially in Mahayana Buddhism, okay, even the school or the method of Buddhism is unfortunately categorized and defined by an emphasis that different practitioners put. Some of the Buddhist tradition or the school emphasize a lot on not harming others. Their practice is simply not harming the others. Others, they take a little bit more burden. On the top of not harming the others, trying to help others, popularly known as the Mahayana Buddhism. And then there is another attitude and another practice that emphasize on being, of course, on top of not harming the others and helping others, but really trying to actualize the wisdom of unity of elegance and outrageousness. And this is used as a ground to build confidence. Now, I'm sorry with all this jargon, but somehow when we are supposed to help, when our job is to help, we need confidence to help others. And when we talk about confidence, we are actually not talking about a confidence that you have finished a certain degree, you've been to a certain medical college. I'm not trying to sort of make fun of what happened today, by the way. Of course, that's important in this relative world. But we are not talking about that kind of confidence that we, get with few diplomas. We are talking about the confidence of trusting the basic goodness of human being. Everybody is kind, including beings like Hitler. I dare say this. Everyone. There's no human beings that does not have kindness. Of course, some are more kind than the others. This is very, very important, especially in the Mahayana Buddhism. Let me confuse you a little bit. In Mahayana Buddhism, by the way, as I said earlier, Buddhism is the Indian wisdom. And the Indian wisdom is full of twisted thinking. There's so many twisted things. For us non-Indians, it's very difficult. You're at home with such things. But for us, it's so difficult. Another great Nalanda scholar said, okay, this is what I was going to mention when I was saying, let me confuse you. when he was asked, what makes you think that everybody can become Buddha? He said, because everybody has hatred, aggression. Very confusing remark, in a way. Because they have this aggression, anger. What does he mean by that? It's a very profound, actually. Anyone who knows how to harm someone knows what harm means. When this ceiling falls on my head, all these bricks, and they don't have that. They don't know. They're not hitting on my head, thinking that guy needs some pain. When we punch someone with the knowledge that with this stick, fist, whatever, this creates pain because it happened to me. Now that is a fundamental ground for wisdom, It's an amazing wealth. Someone who has that kind of aggression, someone who has that kind of ignorance is a perfect vessel to plant the seed of wisdom and compassion. So we are talking about that kind of confidence, basic goodness of human being. First and most importantly, as a helper. And yes, the second thing is, we will, every one of us, whether we are trained or not, one way or another, because of this basic goodness of human being, we will always try to help. Because as I said, there is a basic kindness in us. But trusting and appreciating this basic goodness might boost our confidence when we help others. I was just talking to my friends here, and they were saying that some of the curriculum involves like Freud and Jung here. This is a little puzzling for me, because in many ways, the Western, especially the Western thinking is so much influenced by a certain theistic tradition, where as ordinary beings, you are almost conditioned to think that no matter who you are, we are all sinners, so to speak. So that is a stark difference between the Buddhist idea of basic goodness of human being, or we are all born sinner. We need to be helped. It's very interesting, actually. Anyway, probably. By the way, please, later maybe I should let you ask questions. I don't know what to say, actually. I don't know what you want to know. I can only share a few things that is written by the Buddhist masters. So anyway, their confidence is one. It's very, very important. And then the Chandrakirti said, I'm sure some of you know this idea of shunyata, emptiness, non-duality. a help, process of help, definition of a problem, definition of what we mean by help, definition, definition, I don't know, definition of degree of what is help. All of this cannot exist and will not function until there is a little bit of appreciation towards the Indian wisdom, the Buddhist wisdom of Shunyata. Now, this may be a little bit of my own interpretation, because Arthashastra, right, is a very big book. Is too big. I was browsing through that, and here again, it's very interesting. Basically, it's like as a human being, we should have fun, right? We should have fun. And Arthashastra, the four almost like indispensable thing that Arthashastra talks about. This is totally my interpretation, very Buddhist influence probably, but it is there. We should have fun. In order to have fun, you have to have money. In order to have both fun and money, you have to have a discipline. But the last thing, and this is what the great Indian thinkers have taught, which even today, like any MBA, any business college would if they could really spend 6 months on the last subject, it would benefit a lot. Not only the school, but the whole world. Okay, the fun, money, discipline, but what is the last? Maya, illusion. At the end, you have to accept fun, money, discipline. Nothing works. Nothing works. Likewise, I'm sure you have learned what is, going back to normality, what is normal, what is not normal. If somebody is beginning to think that this is a swimming pool, yes, between you and me, we will look at this person and, little not normal. So on and so forth. But all of this system is man-made. It's subjective. It's a wild, wild guess job. It's a wild, wild guess job. Nothing, cannot be trusted. But by the way, I'm not saying that you should not apply. You have to. But there's a difference when when you have this confidence that what I am using, the tool, the Jung, the Freudian, whatever, the tool that I'm using ultimately does not work. And then use it. Immediately it frees you from stress and tension. And when you are free from tension and stress, patient will really look at you in a different way. I don't know whether you should be telling your patient, by the way, what I'm doing, it doesn't work. I'm sure. In Buddhism we say the whole Dharma, Buddha Dharma, the path, is like a placebo. There are so many teachings like that. Like the one great Zen master said, kill the Buddha if you see one in the street. But a placebo works because there are, even though it may be an illusory one, the problem, the suffering still functions. So This is what Chandrakirti said in the famous Madhyamika Karika. He gave like systematic, for instance, a bodhisattva, when they are to help others, they use many methods, such as 6 paramitas. And the first paramita is generosity, giving advice, giving materials, giving shelter, giving food, giving medicine, giving protection. But what makes an act of generosity a perfect act? This is coming back to what do we mean by truly help? What makes a generosity perfect, according to not only Chandrakirti, but the Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism? When you know that the act of help, the object to whom you are trying to help, yourself, all of this is an illusion. That wisdom must accompany. Now, even as I say this, some of you may think, this is like, unreachable. This is unachievable. But it is actually not. This is where Shantideva said, another great Nalanda scholar said, there's nothing that you cannot get accustomed with. The emotions that we have, anger, jealousy, pride, all of this, why do we have these things so strongly? Because we have been very diligent meditating upon them and applying them. That's the only reason why they are there. We have been accustomed to it. So, understanding of the illusory and the illusory of our technique, our goal, definition of problem, definition of help, understanding that they are all subjective, is already a step closer to what do we mean by truly help. Then